Hare Krishna. Good morning, everybody. Hare Krishna. So, Jaya Sila here, just tuning in for Srimad Bhagavatam class this morning. The class this morning is third canto, chapter 27, and we're focusing on text number 18. And having a look at it, it's what we'd call a sandhyam verse, or a connecting verse from one verse to the next. So we're also going to include text 19 this morning and have a look back at text 17. It helps to give us a bit of continuity in the whole story. So we'll begin with 18. We'll read the verse, and then, as I said, we'll kind of reflect back to 17, which sets the scene for this, and then on to 19. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 27, text number 18. Yatha gandhasya bhumescha na bhavo vyatirekataha apam rasasya chayata tata buddhe parasya cha. Srila Prabhupada's purport, should I say translation and purport? Translation. As there is no separate existence of the earth and its aroma, or of water and its taste, there cannot be any separate existence of intelligence and consciousness. Purport. The example is given here that anything material has an aroma. The flower, the earth, everything has an aroma. If the aroma is separated from the matter cannot be identified. If there is no taste to water, the water has no meaning. If there is no heat in the fire has no meaning. Similarly, when there is want of intelligence, spirit has no meaning. Om Ganata Marandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual masters forced me to open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we'll read this once more. As there is no separate existence of the earth and its aroma, or of water and its taste, there cannot be any separate existence of intelligence and consciousness. So intelligence cannot be separated from spirit or life. Life symptoms are manifest, and therefore intelligence is combined with that manifestation of life. We have given the example many times of a small ant, for example. If we see an ant and you put your finger, Prabhupada actually used that example, then the ant will consider which way to go. To continue butting its head against the finger? No. It goes round. It makes a move. So it requires intelligence. So even we had an example the other day. As I look out the window, there's a tree, and the tree has the intelligence. This tree is planted right in close to the building, and there's a overhanging veranda. So the tree has figured out that it's better for me to go out. So it goes up and then goes out about 1.5 meters, and then goes back up to meet the sun. So that requires intelligence if it's studied minutely. And those words have been used a lot in this section of the Bhagavatam. Minute analysis, one verse talked about. The next verse spoke about mature understanding, and then vividly feeling. I'm trying to remember exactly which verse it was, but so these are very compelling words that Srila Prabhupada used. Under minute analysis, we can understand things, and that's what Kapila Dev is explaining to Devahuti Mataji, his mother, because she wants to know how to become fearless, and the arrangement has been made for Kapila Dev to explain this to his mother. And it requires careful analysis, not just for the heck of it, not just to keep us busy, but by this careful analysis. It's called Sankhya Yoga, the counting, the analysis of the construction of our existence that we're experiencing now. Then we can understand it better. Otherwise, we simply glance over it and we think in a certain way. The way that we usually think in the material world is, this is for me. I am this body, aham mameti, and what I see is for my enjoyment. So that's the cursory view that appears before us. But if we analyze it very carefully, we find it's not quite like that. In fact, it's absolutely not like that. So that is called Maya, the illusory energy which bewilders us to seeing things not in their true sense, but in an illusory sense. Riteritam yat pratiyata anapratiyata tatmani tadvidyadat manomayam yato basho yato tamaha. In the Chatur Shloki of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord explains that whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relationship to me, you should know it as my illusory energy. That reflection which appears to be real but is actually in darkness. It is asat rather than sat. It is temporary rather than eternal. So initially it appears as though this world is simply for our pleasure, and that we can live here forever. And that is our desire, and that is how we act. We want to stay here. But under minute analysis, mature understanding, we begin to vividly feel. I'm trying to see where that is if I can. I'm trying to see vividly feel, Prabhupada. Just a little bit further back, he was explaining. Yes, it's in text number 15. Text 15. The living entity can vividly feel his existence as the seer. So vividly means very clearly. He can see his existence as the seer, but because of the disappearance of the ego during the state of deep sleep, he falsely takes himself to be lost. Like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distressed, thinking himself to be lost. So we begin to understand things very clearly when we can hear from the proper authorities and understand, and that understanding becomes very vividly felt. Pratyaksha is described in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 2, that the Rajaguyam means most confidential knowledge. It's the king of education, but it is the most secret of all secrets. It gives direct perception of the self by realization. So this is a very important point, where we have the transfer of faith into realization. Adoshraddha is the beginning, but that initial faith, by minute analysis of things, by understanding maturely, by hearing in a receptive way and submissive way, we gradually come to the point of pratyaksha. We get that vivid experience, vivid feeling, very clear that I am not this body. I have nothing to do with this material illusion, the material nature. So it's a great a wake up. It's such a wake up, and it's very exciting also, because it opens up a whole new world to which we were cut off. So that is the inspiring Rajavijja Rajaguyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshavāgamam Dharmam Shusukam Kartamavyam. So Krishna says that when one has this realization, when one penetrates the coverings of illusion, then Shushukam Kartamavyam, it is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. So there's a great sense of inspiration. Also in Srimad Bhagavatam, second chapter of the first canto, Srila Prabhupada elucidates further on Krishna's statements that this One whose mind has become enlivened by contact with devotional service gains positive scientific knowledge. Again, this very clear, it's very clear, it's positive, and Prabhupada describes it, it's no longer Gyan, and we'll discuss that in a few minutes. The Gyan becomes Vigyan. It gains positive scientific knowledge. So Prabhupada translates it as scientific. It becomes, the idea of science is that it's true. That's the idea, although it doesn't work out in modern science so often that way. Because you have the thesis, you postulate something to be true, and then by experimentation, the experiment confirms your thesis, and then you have something that is accepted to be true. The experiment substantiates what you presented. So Srila Prabhupada used that word scientific because the idea of faith has matured and it has become Vigyan, or realized knowledge. So yes, so this is very, very important. So when we go back then to the previous verse, we find this wonderful question, and it's a beautiful question. Devahuti's inquiring. She says, "My dear Brahmana," to her son, "does material nature ever give release to the spirit soul? Since one is attracted to the other eternally, how is their separation possible?" So it's an amazing question. And Srila Prabhupada's purport, I'm going to read it because it's well worth reading again and again. I'm going to read that purport. Devahuti, the mother of Kapila Dev, here makes her first inquiry. Although one may understand that spirit, soul, and matter are different, and we're all sitting listening and we're thinking, yes, I've heard that. We understand it's different. Their actual separation is not possible either by philosophical speculation or by proper understanding. So the actual separation, the knowledge is there, but the actual separation of the spirit from matter isn't possible. Prabhupada's presenting here. The spirit soul is the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord, and matter is the external potency of the Lord. The two eternal potencies have somehow or other been combined, and we've heard how it's become combined. That was the previous chapter. Understanding material nature is there. We're discussing now, and previously it was fundamental principles of the material nature. So we heard from the Bhagavatam how it all comes into existence. First is the Mahatattva, and then it is there unmanifest as the Pradhana, and then gradually it begins to manifest as Prakriti. The Prakriti is the gradual manifestation of that which is unmanifested, and then we see the three modes of material nature entering different senses and sense objects. Everything is being manifested. So those two eternal potencies have become combined. And since it is so difficult to separate one from the other, how is it possible for the individual soul to become liberated? So it's a fabulous question, and the answer is amazing. By practical experience, one can see that when the soul is separated from the body has no real existence. So the body can't exist without the soul being present. It becomes ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It goes, to quote a little biblical sense of the idea. So when the soul's not present, the body is not existing. You don't see any manifestation of life. And when the body is separate from the soul, one cannot perceive the existence of the soul. So when the body is separated, you can't capture the soul. Where did it go? When the body dies, we understand, oh, he's gone. My father is gone. But we can't see that living force leaving the body. When it's separated from the body, again, you can't perceive life. As long as the soul and the body are combined, we can understand that there is life. But when they are separated, there is no manifested existence of the body or the soul. I'll say that again. But when they are separated, there is no manifested existence of either the body or the soul. This question asked by Devahuti of Kapiladev is more or less impelled by the philosophy of voidism. And we're going to discuss this. Srila Prabhupada constantly or should we say relentlessly, is pounding on the voidism, impersonalism, and atheism. And we will discuss that a little more, that all these different philosophies or so-called spiritual concepts are basically just covered types of atheism. That means they're against the existence of God. So they're very dangerous. Prabhupada does use that word. They're very dangerous philosophies or outlooks on life. And they actually destroy the fabric of human civilization insidiously. But we don't see that so clearly. We think, oh yeah, impersonalism, voidism, yeah. Maybe they're a little different. They're absolutely different, diametrically opposed to personal love of God. So Prabhupada's constantly working to push it back, the very pervasive philosophies that pervade all of human society. So that's why Prabhupada's always active in this area. So this question is impelled by the philosophy of voidism. The voidists say that consciousness is a product of a combination of matter, and that as soon as the consciousness is gone, the material combination dissolves, and therefore there is ultimately nothing but voidness. This absence of consciousness is called nirvana in Mayavad philosophy. So that was the text 17, and it led us to today's text, where again it's discussing a little bit of how things cannot be separated. When we try and separate aroma from the earth, or from the taste from water, there can be no existence. So in a similar way, in the material world, it appears that they are inextricably combined, the living entity, the spirit soul, and the material body. And Devahuti's question is, how can they be separated? So we're going on to text number 19. Text number 19. Akartu karma bandhoyam purushasya yad ashrayaha guneshu satsu prakrite kaivalyam teshvataha katam. Translation. Hence, even though he is the passive performer of all activities, how can there be freedom for the soul as long as material nature acts on him and binds him? Read that once more. Hence, even though he is the passive performer of all activities, so it's been described already that the living entity is the passive performer. He's pretty much asleep in the body. So he's the passive performer. He acts through the agency of the mind and senses and polluted intelligence and so on. And actually he's very passive. He's not very active. How can there be freedom for the soul as long as material nature acts on him? So he doesn't have that conscious ability to function outside of the material nature acting on him, and it binds him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Although the living entity desires freedom from the contamination of matter, he is not given release. What a statement. Although the living entity desires freedom, all living entities in all situations actually desire freedom from the contamination of matter. That's actually what's going on. He's not given release. So the living entity is suffering in so many ways, trying to become freed from the restrictions of the material nature that he's existing and he's existing under, and the limitations of the body. That's actually what's going on. The living entity is never comfortable in this situation. Therefore, he's always trying to make adjustments to become free from the restricted so-called pleasure that he experiences in this material world. He wants more pleasure. He wants better pleasure. He feels that it's not quite right. So he's trying to make an adjustment and basically to gain release from this situation that he finds himself in. Actually, as soon as a living entity puts himself under the control of the modes of material nature, his acts are influenced by the qualities of material nature and he becomes passive. Prakrite kriya manani gunai kamani sarvasa ahankara vimudatma kartamiti manyate. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes this declaration that the bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, considers himself to be the doer of activities, but actually he's passive. He's fully controlled by that material nature and he's forced, compelled to act. So he thinks himself to be the doer, but actually material nature is doing everything. He's practically asleep. It's quite a tragedy. And again, he doesn't get the satisfaction he's looking for through his surrender to his body and its temporary existence in this world. It's confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Prakriti Kriyamanani Gunai. The living entity acts according to the qualities or modes of material nature. He falsely thinks that he is acting, but unfortunately, he is passive. In other words, he has no opportunity to get out of the control of the material nature because it has already conditioned him. So he's cemented in. I've used that term. He's concreted in. He can't get free from this thing. And Devahuti is asking this question. She says, does it ever give release to the spirit soul since one is attracted to the other eternally? It's such a perfect arrangement. It's so perfectly arranged that we can't even see that this is the arrangement. We're convinced I am this body, this world is real, the senses are able to enjoy through the sense objects, I'm experiencing some kinds of happiness and distress, I am living in this. But actually it's described by Bhagavatam to the flapping of a dead body. The soul is giving energy to the body, but actually it's actually dead. Bhagavatam explains that in different places. So, continuing Srila Prabhupada's purport. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also stated that it is very difficult to get out of the clutches of material nature. So Krishna is saying, he's explaining everything. This is the wonderful Bhagavatam and the wonderful Bhagavad Gita that Krishna he explains all of this very clearly and simply in Bhagavad Gita. Daivahi Eshagunamai Mama Maya Duratyaya, Krishna said, my Maya Duratyaya, it is very difficult to overcome. Why? Because it is Daiva. It is my energy. I've made this so perfect. Everything that Krishna does is perfect. So it's very difficult to overcome. But he says, those who surrender unto me, just if you don't, those who surrender can easily cross beyond it. That amazingly difficult thing to do, it becomes so easy. That whole ocean of material existence is shrunk down into the amount of water in the hoof print of a calf, and easily you can step over. So that's Krishna's arrangement. He makes this arrangement. We say, oh, Krishna's so cruel. How he's made such a difficult situation for us. We can't get free. We're struggling. We're suffering. Oh, bleep, 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 complain, complain, complain. But Krishna says, if you listen, I'll tell you that if you surrender to me, it's okay. It's so easy. I'll make it so easy for you if you surrender. Oh, surrender. I don't want to surrender. I want to enjoy. I want to enjoy. Krishna says, I know you want to enjoy. I'm telling you, this is how you can enjoy if you surrender and give up your foolishness, beating your head against the wall. Puna punas charvata charvananam. Again and again, chewing that which has already been chewed. Now you've come to the human form of life. Wake up. It's not meant simply for sense gratification. which is available to the hogs and the dogs that eat stool. Lord Rishabdev explains. It's meant for penance and austerities to attain the divine position of devotional service, by which you can experience unlimited transcendental pleasure. You can come back home, back to Godhead, to your actual position, to your actual existence of Satchidananda, bliss, eternality, and knowledge. That is what Krishna is saying. And it's easy. It is easy. At the same time, we all know it's difficult. Stay tuned. One may try in different ways to think. Then Srila Prabhupada goes on. Here we go. So it's very difficult to get out of the clutches of Maya. Krishna said, one may try in different ways to think that everything is void in the ultimate issue. That's one. And that there is no God. And that even if the background of everything is spirit, it is impersonal. So that's Prabhupada, the voidist and the impersonalist. So this is when we ponder, if we're able to be a little philosophical, which no one's really interested at all, really, pretty much. But those few people who want to get free and have got a higher concept or idea of how to get free from all of this, they come to this position. They may try in different ways to think that everything is void in the ultimate issue and then that there's no God. We presented something many years back. We were invited, the devotees were invited to a school actually over in the North Shore. And they had invited three people to come and speak to the children. It was maybe, it was the whole of 6th, 7th, 8th form or something. There was maybe a few hundred, 200 or 300 children there. And one was a cosmic lady. She got up, and I don't know, I can't remember exactly. She was a real sort of what was it? It's like kind of new age cosmic lady. She had a cloak thing with colors on it and stuff, and she got up and said whatever she said. And then the Buddhist was invited. The children were being introduced to different concepts of religion. So the first thing the Buddhist said was, "We are not a religion. We do not believe in God." So I was a little shocked, so to some extent a little bit shocked. Wow, he's come straight out, he's an atheist. So he's a covered atheist in the name of some spirituality that we dismantle everything and ultimately we merge into nothingness. By Sheshika Prabhu a few weeks ago, I was listening to one of his lectures. He made a nice point. He said, it's not a very consoling philosophy. And say your grandmother or your grandfather or somebody dies, and you console them by saying, well, don't worry, it's everything's fine because nothing actually exists. It's all an illusion. And she's merged into the voidness. So there's nothing to be worried about. It didn't matter anyway. And her life was actually just an illusion. And we agree in one sense, life is an illusion. But absolute reality is not an illusion. But they present that actually it's all void. It's without any meaning, so don't be upset. Wow, great, okay. Not a very consoling philosophy if presented like that. Obviously, I'm speaking in very general terms, and I'm sure a Buddhist could word juggle around and try and make it that there was some very good thing about it, but never mind. So that's one. And that even if the background of everything is spirit, it is impersonal. So it's another kind of atheism, impersonalism, and that's why Prabhupada beats at it constantly. It's a covert atheism, and it's very insidious because it's presented so often. Well, you know, and Prabhupada used that term you've heard, I'm sure, Srila Prabhupada's lectures, yatomat tatopat. There are many paths, they're all the same. They all lead to the one. You're following bhakti, we are following philosophical speculation and Brahman realization. Same, no problem. No, actually, there is a problem. The difference is there. Vadanti tatvavidas tatvam yajganamadvayam brahmati paramatmati bhagavanati subjate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth realize this non-dual substance is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So there is Brahman realization. And we see through the Srimad Bhagavatam histories of personalities who were Brahman realized. And when coming in contact with pure devotional service were able to go further in their realization to understand Bhagavan. Shukadev Goswami is given as one of the examples. 4 Kumars are given as examples. So Brahman realization is absolutely perfect. It is part of the full realization of the ultimate absolute truth. But Mayavad is another character, and he's described by, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said they're the greatest offenders because they're presenting not that God is everywhere and everything and supporting every aspect of this manifest cosmic creation, as we've heard from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, Krishna is there. He's in everyone's heart. He's within each atom. He's in between the atoms. Everything is supported by the all-pervasive energy of the Supreme. So this is transcendental spiritual realization. But Mayavad is going to the, they say, no, there's no such thing as a personality of Godhead. Don't go further. Just accept that it's all one. And they speak of naraka, or formlessness. There's no form of God. When the impersonal decides, although how can an impersonal decide to take a material body? They say that when the Supreme manifests in different incarnations, he accepts a body under the modes of material nature for pastimes. The impersonal has pastimes. And in this way, they go on about how everything is, the Lord, the Supreme Lord, has no form, he has no hands, no legs. He won't be able to hear your prayers because he has no ears. He has no senses and no individuality. So this is a covered atheism, and it is very, very insidious. Just like any atheism destroys good qualities. So whether it's covered or uncovered, it destroys all goodness in this world. Nothing has any real meaning. There is no real purpose to anything. Whereas when we have a God-centered consciousness in civilization, everything has meaning, everything has purpose. There is right and wrong. And we see, again, it's hard to pin this thing, this atheism and voidism and impersonalism. But it's so rampant. There's so many, everything. So on the basis of this, yes, it's all one. Everything's one. So there's no discrimination. Why should you discriminate? So again, it's just like we hear that the learned sage sees with equal vision the Brahmana, the cow, the elephant, the dog, and the dog eater. So with that spiritual vision, we see equally. But at the same time, he's not encouraging that we embrace a tiger because it's also the same. It is spiritual. So embrace the tiger? No. You have to discriminate and see that the living entity is there, but it's got a tiger's body. So there's the oneness, but there's a differentiation. So in a similar way, the oneness is there, but not in the material sphere. There is difference also. Simultaneous oneness, but differentiation. But the idea of impersonalism is we dismantle the differentiation, it all becomes one. And therefore there's no standards. There's no male and female anymore. I don't know if you've noticed that. It's been introduced all over the world. Don't tell a child that it's a boy or a girl. That's social engineering. The fools have no idea that they're being socially engineered at every moment to think in such a foolish way. They've lost all discriminatory power. Don't label your child as a boy or a girl. How incredibly foolish is that? But it's all in the basis of impersonalism. There's no right or wrong. You can't say that. You can't discriminate against anything. Everything is the same. So that's your, there's no right or wrong. That's just your concept. I have my concept. They're all the same. And Prabhupada said, no, it's not. Just like if you want to go to Delhi, he gave the example, you have to purchase a ticket to go to Delhi. By purchasing a ticket to Delhi, you will not end up in Bombay. It's not all the same. There's differentiation. Krishna explains this also In Bhagavad Gita, he says, Yanti deva vrata devan pitrin yanti pitri vrataha bhutani bunti majaji mam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth amongst the demigods. Those who worship the ghosts and spirits will take birth amongst such beings. Those who worship the forefathers will go to the forefathers. And those who worship me will come to me. There is differentiation. So we'll continue the purport. Devahuti poses the question that although one may speculate in many ways, where is liberation as long as one is under the spell of material nature? The answer is also found in Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Only one who has surrendered himself unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Mam eva ye prapadyante, can be freed from the clutches of Maya. Now, there's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam relating to that. It's a very famous verse. Yenyera vindaksha vimuktamaninas tvayasta bhavad avishuddha buddhaya. Avishuddha buddhaya means impure intelligence. And the question is being asked that what happens to those persons who perform great austerities? They may not be devotees who take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, but they're performing severe arura krishna param padam tata. What happens to those persons? Arura krishna means severe austerities to attain the highest position, to become liberated. So they may not follow the path of devotion. What happens to them? So the answer is given by Lord Brahma and the other demigods. They reply that although they perform those severe austerities and penances to attain that highest position, their intelligence is avishuddha buddhaya. It is polluted, it is contaminated, and therefore they cannot find shelter, the ultimate shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in spiritual existence full of bliss and knowledge. But they're trying to take shelter of the eternal position of impersonal liberation. But there's no real ultimate satisfaction for the soul. Therefore, padam, they fall down again and take up, and Prabhupada cited the example of many who take up philanthropic activities and open hospitals and so on, not connected to Krishna consciousness. We may perform philanthropic work, we may open hospitals as we've done, devotees have done that, but it's connected to Krishna. There's a vast difference. Again, we discriminate. There is a difference. So Devahuti, since Devahuti is gradually coming to the point of surrender, her questions are very intelligent. How can one be liberated? That's her question. How can one be in a pure state of spiritual existence as long as he is strongly held by the modes of material nature? This is also an indication to the false meditator. Now, Prabhupada goes on to explain, and this is actually, I remember this, people did this, especially, maybe it's very prevalent now, but I know back in the 70s, people would have this kind of meditation that Prabhupada's going to explain. There are many so-called meditators who think, I am the Supreme Spirit Soul. I am conducting the activities of material nature. It sounds crazy, but it's part of that meditation, because I know I'm considering myself to be completely part of the Supreme. I've merged into that consciousness of being supreme. I was foolishly thinking I was separate, and I suffered in so many ways, but now I realize, instead of trying to dominate and defeat everyone else in my attempt to become God, now I've heard this philosophy which says, yeah, you got it wrong. We're actually, don't compete. We're all God. You are God, I am God. Everyone is God. We just have to realize it, and then we'll realize that we are spiritual, and we are able to enjoy unlimitedly. We are able to control the whole everything. So this, people would enter into this. I am the Supreme Spirit Soul. I am conducting the activities of material nature. At one lecture, someone stood up and said that. No, Swamiji, I am actually controlling the sun. I think Prabhupada told him to sit down. Anyway, the next part of the meditation. Under my direction, the sun is moving and the moon is rising. They think that by such contemplation or meditation they can become free. But it is seen that just 3 minutes after finishing such nonsensical meditation, they are immediately captured by the modes of material nature. Immediately after this high-sounding meditation, a meditator becomes thirsty and wants to smoke or drink. He is under the strong grip of material nature, yet he thinks that he is already free from the clutches of Maya. This question of Devahutis is for such a person who falsely claims that he is everything, that ultimately everything is void, and that there is no sinful or pious activity. So we should focus very deeply on this statement. The question of Devahuti is for such a person who falsely claims either that he is everything, impersonal, that ultimately everything is void, Buddhism and Sunyavadi, and that there are no sinful or pious activities, as I was mentioning. There's no sinful, there's no good, there's no bad, there's no need, there's no discrimination. It's all one. And in light of that, we see social fabric is destroyed. The worldview of God-centeredness, even it was manifest even in other religious traditions. There was a need to uphold social values. There was a need to be a discriminative, what is the word? Steward of the world. There was a system, we used Varnashram system, where merchants were not allowed to exploit the people and make, Prabhupada said the rice, he said the rice has gone up, he said to 8 rupees a kilo. God only knows what price it is now, but Prabhupada was shocked. Rice used to be available for everyone, and it was very inexpensive. There was no question of shortage, and there was no question of not being able to afford to have rice. But then he said, now it's 8 rupees a kilo. Why? Because merchants are unchecked. Who's supposed to check them? Strong leaders. And we look, I'm sure many of you have looked at the news, I have over the last few number of weeks, and we see the strong leaders are bewildered, they have no idea, and they're not checking the merchants. They're in cahoots basically with the merchants to gain profit. So when that is going on, there's no social order from Brahminical to give guidance to strong leaders who will put in place measures to check the greed of unbridled senses of merchants. They want that, they can't help. They can't help but cheat. Again, Prabhupada gave us the idea. Can you close the door, please? Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Sorry, I get distracted so easily, and such is life. Where was I? Sorry about that. For both my outburst of frustration. Sorry about that. I was somewhere in trying to explain yet the system that Krishna. What I'm trying to get to is that Krishna's system is absolutely perfect. It's absolutely perfect. When we have spiritually realized persons who acknowledge the existence of God, and that every living entity has his eternal relationship with God, and that society should be arranged in that way so that everyone can get access to developing their relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We will find liberation on all levels, and we'll find a society that is progressive, that is able to nurture every kind and type of person according to their psychophysical makeup. They will feel sheltered, they will feel safe and secure, so that not just so that they can live in this material world, but so that they can make progress in spiritual emancipation and feel the freedom that every living entity desires to feel. So it is our duty as Vaishnavas, aspiring Vaishnavas, to become established in this truth and to give it to others for the benefit of all living entities, including the Mayavadis, including the Buddhists, including the atheists. All living entities will be properly situated. And that is what Krishna is offering to the living entities. These are atheistic inventions, these ideas, these claims that everything is ultimately void and that there are no sinful or pious activities, that everything is one, yatomat, tatopat, down the gurgler we go. And we see it all over the world. It's a tragedy. It's an absolute travesty that the world is in such a state and people are suffering, and yet they don't know it. You see now that the level 2 is being put in, the cars are all on the road, the trucks are on the road, and everyone's hell-bent back into it, working like donkeys, thinking that a little sense gratification is going to do it for them. And they don't realize that by every day, the rising and setting of the sun is diminishing the term of our existence. And we get older and older, and again, we have to take birth. So we'll most likely finish at that point. I wish we were able to interact with a few questions and stuff, but maybe, I don't know if maybe there is a question, but I think there's just one or two people there, and it's an early morning start, so I know that many devotees most likely are working, and they've got 16 rounds to chant. Maybe they're back at work, and even if you're not working, it's an early start if you've got all your rounds to chant. So I'm looking at the screen here, and I don't see any question that's there. So we'll most likely, what time is it? It's past, and we started, when did we start? Yeah, that's good. It's about a 45-minute. So please forgive me if we've we did go to text 19, so I felt it was very important, and it does connect completely because devotees asking that wonderful question. How can there be freedom for the soul as long as material nature acts on him and binds him? And there's so much good news to be heard, because we're going to hear another 6 or 8 verses through to the end of the chapter, and then the next chapter is Kapila Dev's instructions on devotional service. So lots more nectar to be churned in the future verses. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.